it's Sarah Hodgson. I'm here as your host for the first ever episode of Life Unleashed. I thought a fitting place to start would be in puppyhood and helping you to understand that it is not that difficult to raise a puppy. There are three really important points for you to know. The first is all about your puppy's brain development. The second is about the importance of sleep. In my opinion, the lack of sleep is the reason why so many dogs are ill-mannered. And the third thing is your puppy's basic needs, which mirror a child's needs, but the way you satisfy them is slightly different. Again, puppyhood is not that difficult once you have the right information and the right tools. Okay, brain development. And while we're on topic, I want to give you a quick overview of what goes on during your puppy's first year. Puppy's born, they're in a litter with litter mates. During this stage and up to 12 to 14 weeks is intense brain development. Puppies' brains are very similar to a child's brain when they're first born. As a child matures, their brain grows to fill their entire head cavity. With that brain growth, we get the frontal lobe and cognition and deep thinking and past, present, future tenses. That's a human's brain. What happens with a puppy's brain is it's less about organ development and more about sensory neurons. 80% of your dog's brain will be sensory neurons, and their entire life is, in fact, devoted to sensory interpretation. This is why their hearing is so acute and their smelling is so acute and their eyes are trained to motion. We are very different species. And once you understand that, you can gain a little appreciation for your dog's behavior. Now, after that brain development, what happens is they shed their little puppy milk teeth. And that takes a good month to month and a half. As they're shedding their teeth, there's a little bit of teeth pain. Their gums hurt. You'll get some nipping during that phase. It's pretty intense. The next phase is all about bone growth. So your puppy from about 4.5, 5 months to 7.5 months, their bones will grow. You will see them expand like a sponge toy overnight. So there's an intense period of brain growth that goes to 7.5 months-ish. Then what happens is they develop their muscles. Their bodies expand. Hey, this is a phase where bladder muscles grow. They haven't been there before. So if you're having some frustration with housebreaking, remember your puppy doesn't have bladder control. That'll be a topic for another podcast, I promise. But the muscles growing, the face expands. That's an intense period for the puppy. That's also really a period where their hormones begin to flow. So they begin to sense the otherness in your relationship. They begin to have different thoughts and they know it. A little bit of teenage misbehavior. Everybody has it. So during that period, there's a muscle growth, and boom, by the time they're a year, they're basically a full-grown adult dog. Now, they have emotional and hormonal development that can go on as long as 3 years, but their size is pretty much set at a year, and it's equivalent to the first 21 years of a child's life. The second point, and it's a big one, is about your puppy's need for sleep. I just talked about how people and dogs are different. Some similarities, some differences. An important difference is in their biorhythm. People say, biorhythm? What's biorhythm? Biorhythm is the way that we are set up to get the right amount of sleep every day. We are what's known as diurnal. So we're mostly awake 2/3 of the day. We sleep 1/3, and we do that at night. Many animals are nocturnal, which means they're awake at night and they sleep during the day. Dogs are a third biorhythm that's less talked about, but equally important to understand, which is crepuscular. Deer, all the canids, swans, many birds are crepuscular. That means they're most awake at dawn and dusk, and they are restful during the day. This is, in fact, what led to such a cohesive domestication, because we generally go out to work or go to school during the day. The dog rests, we come home, they want to engage and they interact. But lately, since many of us are working at home, we are around a lot. And when we're around a lot and we have a little puppy and we're constantly engaging them, the one thing that goes out the window is that important daytime rest period. So, sleep, or lack thereof, leads to a puppy that is overtired. When a puppy is overtired, they act out much like children, but in different ways. So an overtired puppy will become very nippy, very frenetic, and people think, oh, I need to exercise my puppy more because they're so frenetic. No, please don't exercise a puppy more. Puppies' muscles and bones are developing, and too much exercise can lead to growth pains and all sorts of nightmarish situations. When you have a puppy, the most important thing you do is teach them to sleep. If you want to use a crib, I support that. I think of a crate as the crib. It helps your puppy shut out all the distractions around them. Puppies need to sleep early on with the sun. So a young puppy, I have a little camp for puppies where they come and stay with me. All the puppies go to bed between 7 and 7:30, or during the summertime, when the sun's out, 8 o'clock. When they go to sleep, they need to go into the crate. And I like people to think of creating an environment that's like being in the inner sanctum of the den. So the puppy goes into the crate, you darken the room, you play some sound-canceling music, and the puppy gets a good nighttime sleep. Sleep doesn't end there, though. Crepuscular animals are awake. A puppy's awake for an hour and a half or 2 hours in the morning. And then if you have a puppy, you'll notice that they start to get restful. That's the time for their first sleep pattern. So the routines are, puppy wakes up, we go potty, pee, maybe pee and poop. We come in, we eat, we go out to potty again, and we play. Then the puppy will come in, calm itself down, maybe play interactively or chew on a bone, and then within 90 minutes to an hour, the puppy is ready for their first rest period. A young puppy whose brain is still developing will actually go back to sleep for 2 to 4 hours, sometimes 4 hours after just getting up after a 12-hour nighttime shift. Now, the puppy gets up and you repeat that same pattern. We're out to potty, we're in to eat, we're out to potty, explore a little bit. Within an hour to an hour and a half, the puppy's going to need to go back down. The most awake period for a puppy is kind of that afternoon period, that 3 or 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock period. And that's a great time if you have a puppy to put them in a sling if they're tiny, or carry them and expose them to different sights and sounds. That socializing will definitely be another topic for another podcast. But right now, understand if your puppy is not getting 12 hours during the night, 4 to 6 hours during the day, and they're acting out, it's because they're overtired. Okay, so now let's focus on your puppy's 5 basic needs. This is going to be what you're focused on for the first 6 months you have your puppy home, and it's going to be integral in creating an environment that's safe and predictable for your dog as long as you're together. So we all have 5 basic needs: eat, drink, sleep, potty, and play. Sleep I've talked about a lot. I'm going to touch on it a little bit more, but eat, drink, sleep, potty, play. And if you look at your puppy's day as a wave, not some jagged, unpredictable occurrence every hour on the hour. It's really very, very predictable. So, feeding. When puppies wake up, they're hungry. They're growing. They've been asleep for 12 hours. So you really want to target the feeding time to your life's pattern. If your goal is to sleep in till 7:30 or 8 every morning, then you want to pattern the feeding around that time. If your puppy first comes home and is crying at 5:30 and you bring him out and you feed him at 5:30, guess what? They're going to start waking up every day at 5:30. So let's teach your puppies a good sleep-eat relationship. When a puppy is little, their metabolism is super high. So most of them like to have 3 meals a day until they're about 4 to 6 months old. When you feed your puppy, I like to use food as kind of an incentive. So instead of just putting some food in a bowl and plopping it down for your puppy, or worse, putting it in the bowl, your puppy's barking at you or jumping or biting at your ankles. If you put it down, you've just reinforced the wrong behavior. Hello. It'll all make so much sense, especially if you stick with me in my podcast, because I'm going to explain everything and you can send in questions. So we want to use food as an incentive to hold still, an incentive to sit on their mat, to show some impulse control. And there's no reason, if your puppy likes their food, you can't dole it out either in 3 or 4 or 5 bowls, or if it's something you can hold in your hand, you can use the food to motivate their learning and their focus. So food is important. It's life-sustaining. Dogs like to be fed at consistent intervals. I've always fed my dogs at 7. I'm an early riser, at noon, and at 4. People say 4? 4 so early. But puppies, when they're little, takes about 4 to 6 hours for the food to process through their body. So if my goal is to go to bed at 9 with my puppy, I'm early to bed and early to rise, I don't want to feed them at 6 or 7 because then they're going to be getting me up at 1 or 2 to go to the bathroom, and that we don't want to have happen. So again, at intervals so that your last feeding is within 3 to 4 hours of their last bedtime. Water, fun fact, number 1 for today's podcast is that when your puppy first comes home and they have all these little milk teeth, they also contain a ring around their tongue that makes water taste like sugar. So if you notice, my puppy is like drinking just like crazy. There's a reason for it. It's evolutionary, but you and I know that we're not going to run out of water and they're not going to go through a drought period. So monitor your puppy's water if you're having issues with peeing accidents. Put the water down when they appear thirsty or with their food or after they've been chewing on a bone or had a bunch of snacks. But be aware of water coming in because it will be a direct predictor of when the water is going to come out. So water is important. Your puppy needs water throughout the day to to avoid dehydration. But be aware of how much water your puppy is drinking. Third need is sleep. So again, deep sleep. We're going to think of sleep like a wave. We have our deep REM sleep, then we have our light sleep. Sleep is a wave. We don't want the puppies being woken up periodically, just jolted awake by the sound of the doorbell or somebody phoning or somebody getting up to go to the bathroom. We want them to hold on to that deep sleep because it's during that deep, long hours of sleep that their brain develops and their body grows. If they're overstimulated or not put in a crib or a quiet area to rest, they're going to become hyper alert dogs that wake up or respond to every sight and sound. It gets old fast. Puppies need to sleep during the day, and initially you need to coach that sleep by putting them in a quiet place to do so. So we have eat, drink, sleep, then we have pottying. Dogs like to potty in the same area. If you're paper training, you can align some papers in kind of a quiet area. I like to put them in a corner. If you're training your puppy to go outside, designate a place that's close to the house. Remember, little puppies are very inhibited. They don't want to leave the den because they're prey animals until they're older, 6, 7 months. They're going to want their potty area to be 10 to 20 feet outside the mouth of the den. Another thing I didn't bring up is that your home is a den. So with your home as a den, if you want your puppy to leave the den to go potty, don't make them go too far. Now, you wouldn't send a toddler to the neighbors to toilet train them. So don't do it with your puppy either. Right out the door, or put the papers in a quiet area that they can go to take care of their pottying needs. I am going to do multiple episodes on potty training a puppy, potty training a rescue, potty training an older dog. But suffice it to say that potty training is easiest if you remember to create an area for your puppy to go. Number 1. Number 2, follow the same route to that area when going outside. Initially use one door. Number 3, remember to take your puppy to go potty after eating or drinking, after sleeping or resting, after chewing a bone intensely or playing. These are all things that trigger their bladder muscles to release. So potting is important, same place, same route, and be mindful. Each time you take your puppy to go potty, cue it with a word like outside or papers. Then you could say to your spot as you take your puppy to their area, and a word like get busy or potty time as they're going potty. Don't prompt them because they don't yet know the word. Say these words as they're doing the action so they pair word to action. Eat, drink, sleep, potty, play. There's no evolutionary understanding why anybody plays. But we know this. When animals feel safe with who they're with and where they are, they have a tendency to relax and play. It's a great way to expel energy. It's a great way to form bonds and connections. When puppies are very little in their brain development phase, up to 14 weeks, they will parallel play. They'll play with the ball. You can play with a similar ball. They'll follow you if you're running away, but there's no interactive. There's not much interactive like fetching a ball or relating to you as you play. Once their brain is developed, they really start forming bonds with you, and the play becomes more interactive. I have tons of games all over my YouTube channel, all over my TikTok, in all my books, because play training is such a wonderful way to connect with your puppy. And if you're raising your puppy with kids, it's much more fun than basic obedience. Trust me. There's a game that I love to play with kids. I call it, and I do it with grown-ups too. So it's called Alligator Island. And I put the child or the person, when the puppy is getting a little frenetic, maybe nipping at their heels or biting them, I put them up on the counter or a tabletop. We call it Alligator Island. Everybody pulls their feet up, either on a chair, crisscross applesauce, and once the puppy sees that they can't reach them and that this person is now on a higher outcropping, the person has a bit of control over the puppy. The puppy's like, wait a minute, I want you to play with me. Now you wait until the puppy comes down and follows what I call the 4-paw rule, which simply means they have all 4 paws on the floor. Then you can motivate their impulse control, their focus, by tossing a toy down or tossing a treat. Another great game that I love for play training is you fill a little cup. It could be a toddler cup. It could just be a cup or any gum container that's been washed out, and you shake the cup and you call your puppy's name. When the puppy associates the sound of the cup shaking with getting a treat, you can play Find It, where you drop the treat on the floor. That helps prevent jumping, so they're not jumping at you to get the treat. And you can also play Catch Me games, where you shake the cup and you run away, and you teach the puppy to stop, maybe sit down once they learn it. And this way, the puppy is learning to follow you, to reference you for fun and activities. All sorts of games I love to play. Ice Cube Hoppy and Two Toy Toss. And I am a one-stop reference for puppy games. You can find them out there anywhere. Just Google puppy games. Find some games, see what your puppy loves to do, and play with them each day, because that's the best way to bond. It's the best way to teach impulse control, and it's the best way to introduce commands. So 5 basic needs. I want you to assign some words for each. Dinner time, water, in your room, all sorts of get your toy or get your ball. The potty words we went over. Assign words to action. These are the first words your puppy should hear. They should be able to turn to you when they're feeling needy. Final tidbit, important point. When a baby cries, the parent figures out what they need to satisfy them and they calm down. Puppies don't cry so much. What they do is nip, and they don't nip lightly, they nip hard. That's your puppy's way of saying, I need something, and can you help me figure it out? And doing that with your puppy day in and day out, creating a routine, teaching them words, assigning them to the routines of everyday life, reminding them that all these certainties are your responsibility, will create a bond that will literally last their lifetime. So, this is episode number 1 of Life Unleashed. I am so delighted to be your host. I'm here for your questions. I will be putting up these podcasts weekly. Please follow, join, come along for the ride. And you and I are going to make the world a better place, one dog at a time. Take care. See you next week.